What's going on, guys? Eric here and welcome to the channel. For this project, we'll be customizing a bow staff like this one with automotive vinyl wrap. At the end of the video, we'll talk about how much it might cost you to do a project like this and how much you might be able to charge if you wanted to offer this kind of service to customers looking to customize their martial arts weapons. Before we get started though, please be sure to subscribe and hit that bell notification so that you get notices whenever I post new content to the channel. I've got more projects on the way and I'd love to share them with you. Alright guys, and so before we get started on this project, let's go over some of the things that you're going to want to have on hand to do this. So first and foremost, you'll want to have your vinyl ready. This is Vivid's new Carbon Kevlar Blue, released earlier or later in 2020. So it's a new material, first time I'll be using it. You'll want to have a heat source like this heat gun. If you don't have a heat gun, or you can use a torch. If you don't have a torch, you can use a hair dryer. Just be aware that a hair dryer does move a lot of air, so it could push your vinyl and move your vinyl around while you're trying to apply it. You'll want to have a knife. I'm just using this knife, which has 30-degree snap-off blades. The body of the knife is by Vivid. The blades, I believe, are NT cutter blades that you can order on Amazon. And by the way, everything that I have here, you can pretty much order online. I'll put links in the description for those. You'll want to have a squeegee. I have two different ones here. For this particular project, you might have limited use of the squeegee because it's such a thin object. Instead, you're not going to be laying this to flat surfaces. The other thing you might want to consider having are things like this measuring tape. So for example, I needed to measure where to cut off on certain parts, since I'm going to be doing two pieces on this particular project. So making marks on your bow staff is helpful. Having this toolkit is handy as far as keeping your tools on you and ready to grab and access really quickly. I do have a couple things in here, as you can see sticking out. I got micro squeegees, a blade breaker box, another knife, etc., etc. So some of the things that you want to have on hand. And then lastly, this wrap glove. If you don't have one, it's not a big deal. But they are helpful because what a wrap glove does is allow your hand to slide and smooth over the vinyl easier than your bare hand, which sometimes can grab or stick to the vinyl itself. Wrap gloves make it very smooth as far as applying the vinyl. Alright guys, and so those are the basic items that you'll want to have on hand and at the ready for completing this project. And with that, let's go to the how-to portion of this video. Alright guys, so to get started, make sure you cut out a piece big enough to wrap around the body of the bow staff, and then that's long enough to cover. In this case, I'm covering about a third of one side or one tip area of the bow staff. And so basically, as you saw there, I centered the vinyl. I tacked down one end at the tip, as you can see on the right side of the screen, and then went and tacked down the rest of the vinyl down the center. And then I'm just using my thumb to lay down a little bit of vinyl, rotating it slightly, laying it down a little bit more, and then I applied a little bit of heat with my heat gun, as you saw there, just to kind of soften the vinyl up to help it make it a little bit more compliant in laying it down. When you use this kind of vinyl though, because it is a chrome type material, make sure you use very low heat, and as soon as you see the vinyl soften and get warm, which is all you're trying to do, make sure you take that heat away, because you can easily distort or damage this type of film. What I'm doing now is continuing that process of laying it down using my thumb, adding heat as necessary to get it down, and I'm going to reach a point where I'm almost hitting the other side of the vinyl towards the center, and I'm kind of hitting it a little bit towards the tip part there, and that's because of the decreasing diameter of the bow staff as it goes towards the tip. Once I get to that point, what I'm going to do is set up, and you can see, and I forgot to mention in the materials, we need knifeless tape down there, and then lay that down along the edge of the part that I've laid, and that's just to get ready to trim off the excess that I've just laid down, and then when I overlap, any excess on that. And so what I mean by the two cuts there, cutting out the excess that I just laid down, is I'm going to use one side of that knifeless tape as kind of a guideline, and very, very lightly with my utility knife score the vinyl on the on one side of that cut tape. In this case, the side closest to the bottom of the screen, and then I'm going to peel it off. And because I applied that cut tape, it's a good clean straight line. And then I'm going to wrap the rest of the vinyl that's unwrapped over the rest of the body of the bow staff and then over my cut tape. And then once I do that and have that sealed down and secured, I'll pull my cut tape to then cut off the excess vinyl and peel that away. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to create a small overlap between the first part that I lay down and this part that I finished off laying down. And that will ensure a long-term seal and durability, because I don't want to do a butt seam. I'm doing an overlap seam. A butt seam over time, because of the type of thing that we're using here and the type of vinyl it is, may pull back a little bit over time and separate, and so you can make a nice clean butt seam that looks great once you first applied it, but once it's been used and heat and time, the butt seam can separate, whereas an overlap, there's no chance of that. And so once I've got that set down, as you can see, all I'm doing is applying heat, and I'm just going over the whole body again to make sure I don't have any air bubbles that are trapped. And as I do, which I did in this particular case, just address them by pressing them out, giving a little bit of heat, smoothing out the vinyl to make sure that you have a nice, clean, smooth surface. And so that's what I've been doing here in the last few seconds of this particular video portion here. And you can see I'm just going over again, once I've felt comfortable that I've got all the bubbles, going over the whole thing with just some light heat. Again, you don't want to use heavy heat here. Making sure everything is smoothed out, and the heat will also help the adhesives kind of cure or bond harder to the body of the bow staff itself. So there you can see I have finished wrapping this tip or side of the bow staff. So now that I've shown you how to wrap one side of the bow staff, we go ahead and do that to the other side, and then that leaves you with the middle to wrap. Now what you can do is wrap the middle with some sort of like athletic grip tape, like you would find on the handles of baseball bats, or maybe gymnastic bars, things like that. Or you can apply more vinyl, which is what I'm doing here in this case. And so the process is basically going to be the same. Cut out a piece big enough to cover the exposed wood portion of the bow staff, tack down one part of your vinyl, lay it down smoothly and nicely. I'm using my thumb and my wrap glove, and I'm laying down a little bit, rolling it just a little bit more, and then laying down and rolling. Now I'm at that point where I'm going to go ahead and apply some of the knifeless tape, and because in this case, instead of tacking in the middle, because this part tends to be is a more uniform shape, it doesn't have a taper, I did just start on one edge, and then what I'm doing is, now that I'm getting ready to overlap that edge with the remaining vinyl, is I put the knifeless tape there to create my overlap amount, and then I'm going to finish laying down that vinyl. And then once I've got it over my knifeless tape, I'll smooth it out, make sure I've got full coverage, that there's no air. I'm going to go ahead and pull the knifeless tape to cut the vinyl, and then I'll pull off that excess and then seal down the edges there. So I'm going to pull off the excess vinyl, pull out the knifeless tape filament and the tape carriers, and then go ahead and smooth everything down. And so basically this is just a shorter, easier repeat of wrapping each of the sides of the bow staff. And be sure to apply heat to make sure everything is set down. It'll help you also find any bubbles that may actually be trapped that you might have missed. Make sure you smooth everything down and seal down all your edges. And that's it for as far as wrapping the centerpiece of this bow staff. Alright guys, so now that I've shown you how to wrap the bow staff, let's talk about how much a project like this might cost you. So the vinyl that I'm using is by Vivid, and it's a new vinyl they released in late 2020. It's their Carbon Kevlar series. This is their blue. It's actually a holographic kind of chrome vinyl, where if you saw in the how-to video when I was wrapping it, you could see the adhesive side, it was a metallic look with kind of a rainbowy sparkle under it. Anyway, it's super cool. A 1 foot by 5 foot roll of it costs about 20 bucks if you get it through Amazon, and I'll put links down in the description so you can get a roll if you wanted to get one yourself. So $20 for a 1 foot by 5 foot roll. To do this particular project, I used a 4-inch strip, 4-inch by 5 foot strip off of that roll, which is about a third of that 1 foot by 5 foot roll. So we're talking about a third of $20, which is just shy of $7. So for roughly $7, you can customize a bow staff or other martial arts weapon, generally speaking, for pretty cheap. This one just started as a plain wood bow, and now it's got this really cool blue kind of metallic-y chrome flashy color to it. Great for exhibitions and things like that. Anyway, so let's say that you did this and then people start asking you, hey, would you be willing to wrap my bow staff for me? I like the color, I like the way it looks, it's pretty cool. Would you be willing to wrap it? I'll pay you for it. So off the top of your head that generally speaking, to wrap something like this, it'll cost you material wise about $7. And so what you'll then have to figure out and factor in is, what is your time worth to do that? So for me, it took about 30 minutes total to do this. It took me about 10 minutes to do this portion here, 10 minutes to do this portion, and then I just did the center section in just a gloss black vinyl that I happen to have on hand, just as scrap laying around. You can use grip tape that you put around, say like handlebars of bicycles or baseball bats, things like that in the center if you wanted some sort of a grip in there. Anyway, so you have to factor in that cost. So you could probably charge something like, knowing you have $7 in material costs, maybe $8 to factor in some of the other pieces of vinyl, maybe charge $20 for the 30 minutes that it might take you to do, or 40 or 50. Really, it just depends on what you believe your time is worth, how much your market might allow, and what you and your customer can agree upon as far as a reasonable cost to do something like this. There is going to be a point where you're going to have to consider that if you charge too much, they've already paid for the wood version of it, and then they can buy on their own a competition colored version for whatever it costs. And then if the cost for you to wrap their wood one is near that cost, they may not do that. So you have to figure that piece out on your own. But you at least have a good starting point, knowing that for around $7 in material costs, maybe about $8 to consider grip tape in the middle and other things like that, you at least have a good starting point to be able to offer this particular service to others looking to do something with their particular martial arts weapons. So anyway, hopefully you found this video to be helpful and informative and maybe entertaining to some degree. And if you did, like I said before, please be sure to hit that subscribe button and then hit the notification bell at the bottom right of the video screen itself. And that way you'll get notices whenever I post new content to the channel. I'm working on a bunch of cool new projects that I'll be videoing and posting in the near future. And like I said before, I'd love to share them with you. Thanks again, guys, and have a great day.